Welcome into the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. Been a while since we've talked to you guys. Well, not really. You've seen it on YouTube. You've seen it in the podcast feed the last couple of weeks, but it's been a few days here now since Greg and I have got the opportunity to get back together after the live show. Greg, I know you had a great time with Coach Callahan.
Ah,
He had a great time, and the audience did too.
yeah, we were just talking about that, the feeling, and this is the way I think I do my work generally. I think people get the sense, I hope anyway, and it's not a matter of whether they agree with what I say or disagree. Reasonable people can have different points of view. That's fine. That never bothers me in the least. But I think the sense with Coach Callahan, and my sense is he would agree, was that it was just two guys who love ball talking ball. And I think it was pretty clear for the audience. We weren't talking with jargon. We weren't talking in ways the audience wouldn't understand. But I think the audience probably got a really good sense, and the people that are watching it on YouTube and whether it's X or wherever they're seeing bits and pieces, that I think that comes across that it's, hey, two guys who love ball, we're just talking ball.
Yeah, I don't want to gas you up any more than I already do, buddy, but it's being very well received. And like you said, if dopes like me can understand it and keep
Ah,
up,
come on.
the audience I know was able to really dig into it, and it was just a great night, always a great night. And we're so grateful to the analog and the sponsors, and of course, Coach Callahan and you guys for showing up the way that you do each and every year when we do it. Greg, it's we've got mini camp, we got rookie camps. I saw Cam Ward in a Titans uniform throwing on air for the first time last week. Everybody's excited about that. But for you, as you go through the film process, just kind of tell the audience how you
Yeah.
approach this time of year.
Well, the best thing for me about this time of year is I don't have a deadline every because I have deadlines literally every day. And the other great thing about this time of year is I don't have to work on Sundays because it occurred to me, I think it was after the live install when I got home, and I said to myself, wow, this is going to be the first weekend, the weekend that was coming up, that I don't have to work on a Sunday. And going back to like last August, I worked 7 days a week, pretty much from about August 10th until the draft. That's the way it is. So now what I'm doing, Buck, is I see lists from people I respect, the Dane Bruglers and those people. Of players who'll be in next year's draft, and I sort of start getting a feel for those guys. That's number one. I try to watch about 120 guys. They all won't be in the draft, but 90 of them will. And
Mhm.
it gives me a taste of who they are and what they are, because guys don't dramatically change their traits. Sometimes, maybe if it's a new coaching staff, they get deployed a little bit differently, and you have to know those things. But I just enjoy doing that. And then the other thing, which I'll start doing soon, is which I can't do during the NFL season, is I can watch a team, either their offense or defense, 5, 6 games in a row, and then you get a really good feel for what they are, how the coach wants to coach in given situations. Like, I'm very anxious to watch Vic Fangio's defense, even though I'm in the Philly area. They won the Super Bowl, and I know Vic's defense in terms of general principles. If I may decide to watch all of the Eagles defensive plays 3rd and 6 plus. And then I get a real sense of, hey, what is this defense on third down?
Yeah.
How do they want to play? You know, Offenses, there's times I'll watch Sean McVay's offense, on however I choose to watch it, but I can watch 6, 7 games in a row. And I can't do that during the regular season when I have to try to watch, as many games each week as I can,
Sure.
you know.
No, but you start to
So
peel back the layers on it and you get into
that's
tendencies
yeah,
and things like that, which
that's
I'm
what I try
sure
to do.
is
Yeah.
invaluable. Because even though the personnel changes so frequently year over year, Greg, and the coaches have obviously do too. So you've got to adjust sometimes, I'm sure, from a schematic
I'll give you a
standpoint.
great example of a game that's going to be really hard for us to do in the matchup show, but we have to do it because it's a great week 1 game. And it's probably a good segue into the week 1 schedule. Is the first Monday night games Minnesota at Chicago. Okay. That's a hard game for us to do on the matchup show because obviously Ben Johnson's in Chicago. So what Caleb Williams did last year is not, I mean, just we can talk about him throwing a football, but he's a great thrower. But
Sure.
the concepts and the schemes are going to be totally different. Same on the defensive side of the ball with Dennis Allen. Minnesota, they had Sam Darnold last year. It looks like it's J.J. McCarthy this year. That's hard to. How do you do that? So that's a game. That's a great game, and I'm excited for the Monday night game. But for us on the matchup show, it becomes a hard game to do a film piece on.
Absolutely. And it is a good segue because we do have the NFL schedule, dramatic though it may be, the way that the league draws this thing out, but we finally got it. And so we can start to pick apart some of our favorite matchups here in week one. And Greg, the slate,
Good week.
as you mentioned, it's excellent. And you
Oh,
started with Vic Fangio and the Philadelphia Eagles defense, the defending Super Bowl champions. They'll obviously kick things off against the Dallas Cowboys, who since the last time we've talked have added George Pickens to their
yes.
offense. We understand that Brian Schottenheimer was there, and it will be there in a different capacity as the head coach. But there will be some tweaks and some different nuances in that specific game from everything that you know Philadelphia as well as anybody, obviously, given your
Yeah.
proximity. And this is a game, an NFC East matchup that is always going to be highly discussed and just a lot of interest in generally. But the thing that perked your attention up most when you saw this game as the kickoff was what?
Um, Well, first of all, I think that the Eagles are a known commodity. So there's nothing about the Eagles where I think, oh wow, the Eagles. I mean, they're just a really good football team, and they're a known commodity. Do they have some players, changes that have to occur because of free agency? Sure, every team goes through that. I think that game struck me more from Dallas's perspective,
Mm,
because obviously Brian Schottenheimer, who I know, is the head coach now, and it'll be interesting to see what he does offensively. Dak is back. I know there were pictures of him a couple, maybe a month or so ago that he lost a ton of weight. So we'll see. I mean, he's a quality NFL quarterback when healthy. I'm really curious to see what they can do with their run game because Javonte Williams signed there, and he had an ACL a couple of years ago. But when he came out of North Carolina, I don't know if you remember him well, Buck. I mean, I thought he was going to be a really good back in this league because
yeah.
he looked like he had everything. And then they also drafted Jaden Blue. Now he was not a high draft pick; he was a fifth round pick out of Texas. But that guy is super explosive, and I'm not going to compare him to Jameer Gibbs. I'm not going to say that's who he is, but I think he can be deployed in that way. That's my point. I hope people listening don't say, "Oh, Cosell compared him to Jameer Gibbs." No, it's deployment within the context of an offense.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of fascinated because that was a big issue for them. I know that Rico Dowdle had a very, very good year and he's not there. I forget what he signed, but he's not there. And so they ended up running the ball okay last year. And obviously they didn't have Dak. But to me, their offense is what's intriguing to me more so than their defense. Although they have a new D coordinator as well, and Eberflus is there now, so that defense will look different as well.
Yeah, and it is worth noting, Greg, and I don't know just because if it was an internal promotion, I think if I understand correctly, that Kevin Patullo is the new offensive coordinator in Philadelphia after Kellen Moore goes
Yes,
to
yes,
the New Orleans Saints. So probably not a sea change as far as the
no.
Eagles offense there, but a slight, we'll find out more about him and how he works within their play calling structure that they have in Philadelphia. Now that Kellen Moore will obviously go to New Orleans and try and
Okay,
orchestrate
your buddy
offense there.
Kenneth Murray's in Dallas, and he's penciled in as a starter right now. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I was surprised that they gave up draft capital to acquire him, but when teams have needs, who's to say? Uh, uh,
Hey,
I try not to judge it too much from an external perspective, even if
no, no, I
I
mean
don't
it's
love the player.
well, and he's the classic example. We talked about this when the Titans signed him. You know, he's a guy that every defensive coach is going to look at and say, I can make him into a player
Yeah.
because the traits, the athletic and physical traits are so good, but there's just something missing in terms of his ability to see and trigger and consistently. I mean, look, you saw last year, he'll make some plays and you go, wow. But he's with his third team, I believe.
Yes.
And for a guy that was a first round pick that has ridiculous traits and great size, that shouldn't be the case. So something's missing.
Well, Tennessee will open in a unique situation at Denver is a pretty tough opening salvo, essentially, for a
Very
rookie
tough.
quarterback coming into the NFL. Denver's defense last year, Greg, so good. I know Bo Nix was the more discussed. Bo Nix and the offense were more discussed, maybe from a media narrative standpoint than their defense, but their defense was excellent. They add Jade Barron in the first round alongside Pat Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year. And if not for the existence of Jaden Daniels, there's a world in which Bo Nix is the offensive rookie of the year for how well he and
Yeah.
Sean Payton worked
Well,
together. So I wonder what intrigues you about that initial matchup.
what intrigues me is just what you spoke about. Vance Joseph is their D coordinator. He's been in the league a long time. You mentioned the defense, obviously. They led the NFL in sacks last year, and they have a high blitz percentage. That's Vance Joseph. This is going to be a really interesting matchup week one for Tennessee and for Cam Ward, but it's not just Cam Ward, it's the O line. But the one thing, what you want about the O line for the Titans, we know it's been among the league's worst for 3-4 years in a row now. Um, we don't need to discuss that, but now they have veterans. So now there's a difference in how they can handle this. Cushenberry will be back at center. My guess is he'll handle the protections, not Cam Ward. They have Zeitler at right guard. He's seen everything. He's 34, 35 years old. They have Moore at left tackle. He's a fifth or sixth year player. Even Skoronski is now a third year player. So at least they have some veterans on the O line. But this is a very, very difficult defense to play against schematically, particularly on third down. So this will be it'll just be, for me, it's a petri dish experiment. It'll be fascinating to watch. Obviously, you're in Nashville. I don't have a horse in the race. Would I prefer to see the Titans win? Sure, but I don't have a horse in the race.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, just for me, a fascinating matchup of a veteran coach in Vance Joseph, who's seen everything, with a really good defense in terms of talent and schematics now, versus a rookie quarterback and an O line that, even though there are veterans, is playing together in a real game for the first time.
No, I love that you brought that up, Greg, because so much of the oxygen is going to be taken up by Cam Ward, Cam Ward's debut, Cam Ward's first NFL game, Cam Ward on the road, all these different things. But the offensive line in that situation against Van Joseph's defense is going to be arguably as important as what Cam Ward is going to be able to do in that game, because if he is not able to operate, we've seen what Titans quarterbacks have struggled with, and Levis has his own, kind of situation beyond what the protection issues caused. But still, offenses have almost been inoperable here, basically since Taylor Lewan went down for the last time in 2022.
Yeah. And the other factor in a game like this is, and this is why the entire team becomes critical with a young rookie quarterback, because the defense for the Titans becomes so critical. Because if the game plays out that they have to drop Cam Ward back 40 or 45 times, that's going to be a big problem. And you don't, first of all, you don't want to be in that situation with a rookie quarterback in any game, but certainly not week one against this kind of defense.
Absolutely. One more game on this week one schedule.
There's many we could be talking about. There's so many great games week one that I'm really excited about.
Truly, but for the sake of prioritizing this Baltimore at Buffalo game, the AFC Championship game, or excuse me, the AFC playoff rematch between these two teams, where Baltimore just comes up a hair short on that Mark Andrews drop on the goal line. A really difficult situation for a player who's had such a good career, and obviously will not be defined by that singular moment, but it's the most recency bias is a thing in the NFL when it comes to the fans. Buffalo has undergone a bit of a retooling on the offensive side of the ball there. Their defense is something that is going to be interesting too, with Sean McDermott calling the shots, and Derrick Henry extended in Baltimore, which we all expected because of how well that marriage we knew was going to work last year. But how much further can they take that, given that Derrick's getting up there in age? What kind of stands out to you about this game?
Well, I think Buffalo, even though, I mean, obviously with Josh Allen and that offense, there haven't been a lot of changes, and we know that they can score, and we know what Josh Allen is. I've had coaches tell me, and these are coaches now, so I hope people understand that that's what I'm saying. Coaches tell me that they'd rather play Patrick Mahomes than Josh Allen, that Josh Allen is a more difficult player to play against. But the point is, Buffalo has to retool their defense, and that's what they tried to do in the draft. Now, obviously, as you know, their draft picks, as soon as the draft happens, people grade and say, oh, they got this, that's an A. You don't know till they play. But they really tried to upgrade their defense, because that was a little bit of a concern a year ago. They really couldn't rush the quarterback particularly well. Their secondary was was an issue, particularly the corner position. They did re-sign Christian Bedford, who they really liked, to a multi-year deal, and then they drafted Maxwell Hairston in the first round. And they ideally they would like him to start opposite Bedford, but you never know with a rookie until you don't know until you start going through the offseason program and training camp. So they really retooled their defense. Their offense is essentially the same. Everybody's pretty much signed. Yes, they did sign Josh Palmer as a receiver because they felt they needed a receiver that has some kind of vertical ability. But Buffalo is just a good, solid team. But obviously Lamar is always a tough matchup for any defense. You probably saw that Derrick Henry signed a big extension. I
Mhm.
mean, that guy's a freak of nature. So, he's a fascinating guy. I mean, he's just one of those guys that's different. You probably know him. He's just different.
From a personality standpoint, from an on the field standpoint, there's not many people in the world in NFL history, to be honest with you, like Derrick Henry. And I'm glad to see him continue to have success there. And I know
And
that
he's a really, I mean, I've been around him,
yeah,
and you know him better than I do. He's a really good guy.
yes.
But and I'm sure you've read about his offseason program. It's
Yes, I know he's dumping about 250K a year into his body on upkeep at this point in time. So, you know,
just like you're doing, right? So
oh
you're doing that too.
yeah, I gotta maintain, Greg. I gotta. Derrick Henry may only have 3 years left. I may only have 3 years left. Who's to say? Well, I got to make sure I'm maintaining at this point in time.
But there's so many other. I mean, I look at this Detroit's at Green Bay week one. I mean, that's a great matchup as well. Another division game. San Francisco at Seattle. I mean, now with Darnold there, look, I could be dead wrong. We're talking in May, so yeah, who knows? A lot can happen. But I think with Mike McDonald in Seattle and what they've done with that defense, who they've signed and who they've drafted, because they drafted Nick Emanwari.
Mm.
Um, that defense to me could be top five in the league. Now, again, week one, you never know things. It takes time sometimes, but that defense, if people want to look at a depth chart for the Seattle defense and the players they have, I mean, they could be a really, really good defense.
Oh my God, the secondary alone, it'd be a bad day to be a wide receiver. So many long, mean,
Yeah,
lean corners and safeties. It's going to be an interesting build for them. And then, of course, the offensive side of the ball with Darnold and the changing of the guard there in the offensive coordinator situation. So many fascinating games. Now, lucky for us, Greg, we got a couple of months to talk about all this stuff.
yeah,
And the things that we're going to start doing for the audience's edification is we've talked about the Titans draft, obviously at length.
sure.
But what we enjoy doing at this time of year is going through these divisions and seeing what the other teams have done in the draft because we haven't had the opportunity to talk about that as much at length. So we'll start to work our way through those divisional draft recaps as well before we get into OTAs. And obviously,
And
news will change and we'll keep people updated as we go along.
sure, and there's so many changes. Like I know everybody's fascinated to see what happens in Chicago with Ben Johnson now,
Mm.
with Caleb Williams, who obviously is a beautiful thrower of the football. I mean, they can play with three wide receivers. They drafted Luther Burden. They can play with two tight ends. They drafted Colston Loveland. I mean, I'm fascinated to see how that plays out as well.
Well,
It's
they look
to
like they
me,
look like me when I play Madden in college, Greg, with the
yeah.
with the rate of skill position players they're adding. It's crazy.
And I'm always fascinated by the Rams, because Coach Callahan made the point during our live install because he was in Detroit for 2 years that Matthew Stafford is just criminally underappreciated, and I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's Houston at the Rams. That's another huge Week One matchup. I
Yeah.
mean, but
Oh, they're all over the place. It's going to be a fun
yeah,
NFL season. It's always a good NFL season, and I can't wait to get back into it with you, brother. Now that we're through the live show, it feels like the kickoff for us. I know it never really stops for you, but for me, it's kind of I gotta
no,
I gotta get my
but
feet
I'm
wet
I'm
again.
enjoying this time of year, just watching tape. I watch tape, pretty much every single day, and I can do it a little more leisurely now. And every time you watch, you learn something, Buck. That's the thing. And I'm always curious. I'm intellectually curious, and it's just I come in the morning, put on some tape, and I learned something.
Well, and I know I speak for the audience when we say or when I say that we're grateful for your insights and analysis to help us learn about this game that's so much fun and so great to continue to consume and enjoy. And looking forward to another football. Greg's going to be our what fifth year doing a podcast, fifth season already
Something like that.
doing a
But hey, Buck, I
podcast.
love it. We just, hey, and you know what? Just to wrap up, we don't know what Tennessee's going to be record wise this year. At this point, I'm not even thinking that. I know everybody goes through the schedule. Oh, that's a win, that's a loss, and that's fine. I get that. That's the fun of the NFL. It's hey, I'm in the NFL. It's 365 days a year. It's great. But I think Tennessee is going to be a really interesting team because you know how I feel about Ward, but that doesn't mean he's not going to struggle at times. He's a rookie quarterback. But I'm fascinated to see how all this plays out. I really am because I think the guy's really gifted. You've probably gotten a sense of the kid now being the fact that I mean the kid's all football.
Yeah, it's to steal a line from Rand Carthon, and this is a podcast, so we don't have to be completely FCC safe. But Rand Carthon talking about Tajay Spears one year said he's just made of the right shit, and that's how I feel
Right.
about Cam Ward at this point in time with him coming in.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a bit of a science experiment, Greg, and I know we're looking forward to breaking it down, and the audience is looking forward to hearing that analysis throughout the course of the year. And I thank you as always for your time, my brother, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next Thursday.
All right. Appreciate it, Buck.